How's it going? This is something new for me. This is me in front of a camera instead of being behind the camera. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Adrian. I am the owner and operator of Eastern Legends. I started this brand back in 2016. I've been a professional photographer now for about 2.5 years, and I just want to kind of take some time to tell a little bit more of the story behind some of my pictures. I've done a couple of really cool trips this year, and I just think that it would be better to kind of talk you guys through some of the content, give you some context to that content, and yeah, maybe some people like it, maybe some people feel like this is, I don't know, a little bit overdone, but I've always wanted to kind of be a better storyteller. My photos, I've really tried to do it non-verbally, so I've tried to do it in a way that explains to people, you know, this is what the process was, or this is how I saw things. And I think that sometimes there's some much needed context. Gumball 3000 is what I'm going to be talking about today. I've also got Formula One, the half-mile racing that we did in Latuc, and a few other events that happened this year that, again, I think the story is just worth telling. So to those who don't know who I am, again, Adrian McLean. I am based out of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and Eastern Legends is my brand. Yeah, I want to tell a story about Gumball 3000. There are probably some people that saw that and said, oh, geez, that makes a lot of sense, that he would be up there for something like this. But I want to kind of let people know how this all actually worked out, and the people that deserve credit, and the circumstances around the situation. So throughout, and this is just a bit of background. This is just a bit of history to kind of understand the framework in which I look at the world and my photography and cars and what it means to me, because I just want to kind of hammer home some points that might make sense to some people, versus a guy that just posts photos from some pretty crazy locations, which I'll have to admit, I look back on some of this content and I say, this has been an insane summer for me. So I really do just want to share some of the story. I want to share some of the background, and hopefully you guys enjoy checking this out. So for the last 4 years, and this is a pretty personal point, some people may know that I've been pretty sick. I have a degenerative liver disease. It's an autoimmune condition. It is something that I live with constantly, and last year, starting in May, I got really sick. So I've been sick several times on and off since 2018, but last year was pretty bad. I got pretty sick, and I started to get worse and worse as the year went on. It really limited how much photography I could do last year, the things that I could have ambitions towards. All those sorts of things were throttled through 2021. I mean, COVID, everybody had to deal with COVID restrictions and the lingering effects of what was happening, and people getting sick. So really this is a bit of a perfect storm sort of situation for me, because all through last winter, up until about March of this year, I've been barely able to do most things. I haven't been able to work my regular job. I haven't been able to do most normal things that the average person can do. I haven't been able to do that. So this year, towards the end of March, early April, I started to have a bit of a window in my health where the symptoms of my disease weren't affecting me quite as hard as they had been for the previous 12 months. And I took the opportunity to try and make an effort to live a life that was going to be kind of like a bucket list. So when we say bucket list things, there's a lot of limitations of things that I can and can't do, you know, but the biggest thing was I wanted to get healthy enough to try and do things that I always aspired to do. And the motivation really came from a lot of different areas, but I have an amazing group of friends within the car community, and an amazing group of friends in my personal life, along with family, that all help make this possible. The one thing that I will lead any conversation with, if someone tries to give me praise towards you know, my content or the things that I get to do with my life, success never happens in a vacuum. This is not something that I'll come on here and say, oh, I'm a self-made man. It definitely takes initiative and hard work on my end, but the support and the love that I get from everybody around me is absolutely phenomenal. So as I go through the story, I want to make sure that I hit the points to thank the people that need to be thanked. So the scene is healthy episode really starts to come on in the end part of April. I started more physical rehabilitation. I started to do things that were a lot more active outdoors. I wasn't so bedridden or sedentary, and I really started to kind of get my feet back under myself. One of the things that was happening during that time is that I was going through a huge list of tests and procedures with my doctors that are for a liver transplant. So with my disease and my condition, there are no cures or treatments. It is the only route that you can have is to get a liver transplant. And so I had started that process. I had said to my doctors, whom have been very great at handling my condition and trying to get me through everything that I've been getting through, that being sick and living sick is very difficult. It's a hard thing for anybody that lives with chronic illness. In my case, it became unmanageable. And it's something where a liver transplant became the only course of action. It's the only way to move forward with the life that I want to have and do the things that I want to do. So through that process, I grew into a bit more health, as I said. So the hard work that I was doing with strict dieting and physical rehabilitation and all of those things really started to pay dividends, especially towards the end of April and into May. They called me actually through the end of my appointments and my testing that I was going through, and they said, Adrian, there's a need for you to go to Toronto to meet with the living donor hospital that exists in Toronto, Ontario. It is a hospital that is for people getting a transplant from a donor that is living. It's a bit of a long-winded explanation of how that all happens, but it's an amazing hospital. I have a twin brother who had a liver transplant in 2019, and that story, if you want to check that out, is on my personal page. You can follow me at Adrian_McLean. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but so I was scheduled to go to Toronto for meeting with the hospital for the doctors, and that was in one of the late weekends in May, and I had two choices. I could either go for that weekend or I could go for the weekend that was at the end of September. So there was a huge gap, and I had just been through a long process of getting tests done, and I really just wanted to kind of get some of that stuff out of the way. I was eager to try and get my bags packed, as it were. And as I found out that they wanted me to go to Toronto to get this testing done, or to meet with these folks up in Toronto, I happened to find out that the Gumball 3000 rally was going to be leaving from Toronto and going to Miami the same time that I was there. And this was super exciting for me. I didn't have any prospects previously of being able to go and see something like this, an event of this scale. People will know, coming from the East Coast, there's not a lot of big style car events that come here. And so I was able to, at the same time as going up for my medical appointments, team it up with something that I've always wanted to do, which is to go see the Gumball 3000. And so literally it happened within the course of less than a month. I found out about the appointment availability, and then I found out about Gumball shortly thereafter, and I booked a flight, and I made arrangements with really close friends of mine who live out in the West End of Toronto to be able to stay with them, and it was really conveniently located next to a subway, so I could get downtown quickly and get to everywhere I needed to be. And so I did end up going left on a Thursday. I ended up doing my procedures on Friday morning, and shortly thereafter I went to get on the subway and head downtown. In that process, I figured out that there was another local photographer from the Maritimes up in Toronto. And so that was Colton Ladoucière. Colton is a predominant photographer in our area. You guys probably know who he is, but I saw that he was there, and I was excited because there was somebody else from the Maritimes going to be there to be able to share that experience with. So I was walking around, kind of exploring the area around Bay Street where the cars were all parked in downtown Toronto. And the cool thing was that they were at the Four Seasons Hotel that's on Bay Street, and there was a huge crowd of people when I first showed up that were waiting for the Daily Driven Exotics guys to come out with their car and kind of unveil their livery and unveil their Gumball setup. And so I kind of got thrown immediately into the mix of what was happening just outside the hotel, which is adjacent to the Bay Street where all the cars were getting set up and parked. And so I was out there looking around, exploring a little bit, and it was surreal. It was a complete transplant because the area that I was at in Toronto was desolate. There wasn't a lot happening. It was very quiet. And then I get dropped into an area where everything's going on. There's music, there's cars, there's tons of people, and it was a really, really interesting kind of like coming out of the tunnel of the subway, getting out onto the street surface, and just seeing all of these cars that I've always only seen on Instagram or in my phone. All of a sudden, everything was much more real, and it was a really cool experience to have that be my first exposure to the Gumball 3000. It wasn't long after I got there that Colton and I ended up running into each other. We didn't even officially set up a plan to see each other, but because it's such a small area, we ended up seeing each other, and we started chatting and immediately kind of expressing how cool it was to each other. And Colton had made a remark saying, "Oh, there's a friend of mine that's in the rally," and Colton who is from Ontario. He said, "Yeah, man," he's like, "this is super cool. I can't wait to see if I can find this guy." And within 3 minutes of him saying, "Oh, I know somebody," the person that he knew was right in front of us, and he called over to him, and the guy came over, and he spent 10 minutes talking to us and kind of giving us some information on how we might be able to be a part of the Gumball 3000 rally, which was amazing to us because we were just civilians and bystanders. We weren't officially set up to be a part of the rally at all, but both of us, for whatever reasons, had made our way back up to Toronto, and we're there to do as much as we could with the Gumball 3000. And so Colton's talking to his buddy, and he says, "Oh, well, have you guys gotten your media passes yet?" And Colton and I had talked to each other about the fact that we both tried to get media passes for the event, but were unsuccessful. And Colton and I kind of looked at each other, and then Colton says, "No, we haven't picked up our media passes yet." And we both kind of like bit our cheeks a bit because we knew we weren't officially a part of the Gumball event at all. And the guy says, "Oh, well, if you just go into the hotel, go up to the 6th floor, right up there, that's where everything's happening. You can pick your media passes up there." So the guy assumed that we were a part of the event, and that we just needed to simply go get the passes. And so we left the conversation about a few minutes after that, just chatting, and Colton and I head towards the hotel. And again, another place where I give Colton a lot of credit is that this is a situation where, you know, you have to play your attempt right the first time. And so between the two of us, we figured out that going into the hotel through the main entrances is impossible. But Colton was familiar with the hotel enough to know that there was a side entrance and exit to the restaurant of the hotel. And a lot of people were coming in and out of there. And he said, "You know what, I think that we can get in and just walk like we're supposed to be there all the way over to the elevators and get straight up to where we need to go to." And so sure enough, without even stopping or slowing down, we walked straight towards the hotel, and we went right through the lobby, right into the elevator, and went up to the 6th floor. And when the doors open, there's this huge illuminated Gumball 3000 sign, and it really does hit us. We walk around a corner, and immediately we're met by a room full of celebrities and influencers and people that were there, the VIPs that were there for the Gumball rally, along with all of the other media that were supposed to be there as well. And so both of us kind of look at each other and say, "Oh, we're definitely not supposed to be in here." So immediately we kind of start taking pictures and making it seem like we're supposed to be there. But the reality is that nobody really knows who is who. And within a few minutes of us being in that room, we quickly figure out that we are on the inside, and that now it's time to find our way into being useful for the event. How are we going to become useful? How are we going to make this be something that's an opportunity and not just a fun experience for us? And so both Colton and I sign each other up for the email list that the Gumball 3000 had for all the VIPs and the media. And then after that, immediately after that, when we give you a hat that's a part of the event, Colton kind of said, hey, so we're here to pick up our media passes as well. And the gentleman that was working this, giving away the hats, he kind of pointed over to the other side of the room and said, oh, you got to go talk to her. She's the one that has the media passes. She'll be able to get you a bracelet. And so immediately we went over, and she was extremely friendly, extremely nice, and we signed up. We got our bracelets, and that was it. From 15 minutes beforehand, standing out on the street, kind of wondering how we could ever be a part of this or how it could ever happen, through a couple of pieces of advice from his friend, but also the initiative that Colton had, and we're both excited for an opportunity to try and be a part of this, and there it was. It fell into our hands, and so we didn't waste a second. Both Colton and I immediately started to get into the role of knowing what a media person needs to do in this sort of situation. So started taking responsibility to take photos. And for the next 24 hours after that point, all we did was take pictures. And so we were allowed inside of each one of the paddock areas where the cars were being parked, and it was fantastic because it allowed us to get a better perspective on the vehicles that were there for the rally that was going from Toronto to Miami. And so from that point on, we kind of split up a little bit because it's, divide and conquer. I took about 2,000 photos, individual different photos within a 24-hour period. I think we started at like noon or 1 o'clock on the Friday. And I didn't end up going back to my friend's house until around 1 a.m. that night. I stuck around and I did as much coverage as I could of the cars in the daylight, and it was kind of gloomy and cloudy. And then there was a huge event happening with Deadmau5 and the Gumball rally in Dundas Square, right off of Yonge Street, downtown Toronto. Dundas Square, there was a massive event with Deadmau5, huge free concert. It was absolutely insane, super cool to be able to see Deadmau5. After the concert was over, which ended around 11:30, I went back towards Bay Street and the hotel and all of the different things that were happening up there, and started to do nighttime photography, which is a huge passion of mine. I love doing handheld nighttime photography. I use a 50mm lens with a 1.8 aperture, and it's such a cool experience to be able to shoot with natural lighting at night. It gives you a really cool feel for how things look in those sort of circumstances. And so I ended up going back and taking pictures for another 2 hours of all the cars at night. And there's going to be a series that I share tonight, if you guys are watching this video today, all about the nighttime stuff that I got to check out, which was really, really cool. Because there was a lot more cars there that I hadn't seen earlier that had parked after I'd left to go have supper and to go see the concert. And so after a few hours of shooting in the dark, took the subway, headed back out to the west end of town in Toronto, got a couple hours of sleep, and then got back up and then went right back downtown to catch more of the cars lining up and arriving for the rally, because I think there was somewhere in the vicinity of 100 cars or so that were all meeting in Toronto, and eventually when they get to the States, about 150 cars total. And so I get downtown, and there are way more people, way more cars, and Colton and I still have our bracelets, which are the Media Pass bracelets, and so immediately we get to go back inside of the paddocks and see things from the inside, and go back to the hotel and get to meet people and interact with people in a way that never would have happened if we were just bystanders, people taking photos on the street. So as far as an opportunity is concerned, it was a lot of chance, a lot of luck, but a lot of initiative as well. We certainly didn't want to abuse the situation. We weren't there to try and poke holes in how the security works for Gumball, but the opportunity was one that I had been prepared for. I really feel like this is what I want to do with my time and my life and the energy that I've got, and so being able to be a photographer for Gumball unofficially, even with a media pass, was something I wasn't going to waste, and I'm glad I took the effort and energy to take as many pictures as I did and to do the things that I needed to do to kind of prove to myself that I'm worthy of being there, sort of thing. And so through that day, I got to see again a lot of people, meet a lot more people. It was very kind of laid back for the first few hours of that day before the parade happened from Bay Street down to Yonge Street and through Dundas Square. So there's a huge series of photos that I took. You guys can check it out if you want to. It's going to be on my Facebook page. It's about 700 pictures, so it's a huge kind of look through. And I know 700 pictures seems like a lot, but for 24 hours, for the amount of cars and people and things that were happening, I think it really does kind of showcase how the event looked and how it felt, at least to me. And I've got videos and other things like that too that I'm going to post. And I just really want to showcase the fact that it was such a cool way to break out of the shell of being a sick person and push myself back into an environment that feels very comfortable, feels very at home for me. It's something that taking pictures of cars, being around cars, is extremely important to me. And so that day, through the first part of the day and into the afternoon, it was such a blur. There was so much happening, so much going on. And if I can kind of give you an idea of how big it was, in Toronto, it's like there's square blocks. And so there was 3 different block-long parking lots full of cars. All sorts of different types of cars, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Porsches, you name it. There was a version of pretty much every type of brand name out there in the luxury or exotic market. And some stuff that we don't see over here. There was an Alpine, there was a few different cars that we don't get here in North America. That was really, really cool to see. So we ended up walking, or rather Colton and I didn't see a lot of each other on Saturday. Again, it's very busy. If you're trying to take photos, it's tough to kind of just stand around and chat and talk to each other, but we were both heavy on the grind of trying to get as much content as we could. And so getting closer to the time when the parade lap was going to leave, I was working my way through the paddocks. I was going from the very front of where all the cars were parked, and then walking my way through, getting pictures of what was happening. And eventually, after about an hour and a half of me walking through all these different areas where the cars were lining up and they were starting and revving and all this stuff was happening, I reached the very back of the paddock as all the cars started to leave. And so the stretch of distance between where I was at and where the parade was happening in Dundas Square, because they were having like a full-on parade. There was probably 30,000 people in downtown Toronto to watch the end of the Gumball rally leave from Dundas Square, and so there was this huge setup where the Dead Mouse concert was happening the night before. And so I'm at the very back of this line of cars, and all of a sudden in my head I'm thinking, how am I going to get down to Dundas Square in time to be able to see some of this? All of the cars leaving, and so they got a flag and everybody's taking off. So as I got to the very back, there was a team from Texas, and they had a tour bus, a full-size tour bus they were taking on this 3,000-mile rally from Toronto to Miami. And the Texas team kind of saw me looking around as the cars were starting to leave, and they hailed me and said, "Hey, are you heading downtown?" And I hopped into the bus with them. And I don't know if there was people that followed me on Instagram that saw my stories from that, but that was crucial. Another crucial point of being at the right place at the right time. Not planned at all, but the guys that invited me on the bus helped take me down through the city, which would have been a half an hour to 45-minute walk, take me down through the city and get to Dundas Square. And I was able to be a part of everything that happened with all the cars leaving. I don't think there was very many cars that I missed, in fact. And so a lot of series of events that happened through the Gumball experience for me that were extremely happenstance. It was right place, right time. But also having the right attitude and the right energy. I was extremely grateful that I took time to not overextend myself or to exhaust myself too much, that I still had energy left to be able to do the entire day. And so when we got down to Dundas Square, all of these cars were lined up along Yonge Street, and it looked like a traffic jam, but everybody was outside of the cars, all the doors were up on the Lamborghinis and the McLarens and all the other things. And it was insane. Everybody, all the celebrities, all the VIPs, all the other people were all standing in the street, and slowly everybody was making their way through an archway that they had set up with a guy that was flagging the cars for the official start of the Gumball 3000 rally. And so I got to capture content moving from the back of the pack all the way straight through to the front, and then taking pictures of all the cars as they left. And that part of the experience was probably the most surreal, because again, there was 30,000 people, I'm estimating. There was people lining the street for kilometers, and in and around the area that we were in, there was tens of thousands of people. And so you've got a vibe that this was a big deal. This was a huge thing. And it really felt cool to be a part of that. Again, unofficially, but they're trying my best to make sure that I could, you know, capture it the way that I saw it, and try and do it justice. And so after car after car after car leaving this event, really the impression was that this is something that I want to spend my time doing more of. I knew that it's something that I was ready to do, but it was something that I really wanted to put more effort into. And so going forward into this fall and into next year, as long as my health will let me, I want to keep continuing to try and push the envelope of what is possible for me as a guy from Dartmouth, and being a content creator for automobiles. You know, I want to continue to try and elevate that. I have no interest in being a vlog style YouTuber or any of those things, so this is a bit strange for me to talk to a camera and kind of have a conversation with a camera. But again, it's one of those things that I feel like the storytelling aspect and giving context to the content that I create is super valuable, not just to people viewing it, but for myself. It's almost like a visual diary, and it's a way of me remembering the event as I saw it. So I hope you guys really kind of get a bit more of the understanding of how this event happened. It wasn't a planned event. I wasn't invited. Big hat off to Colton for his connection with getting us involved. And then everything since then, it's been crazy. So again, there's more of these kind of story time segments, I think, that I'm going to do, and that's going to be probably, the next one's going to be the half-mile racing, the Le Tuc, Quebec half-mile racing that I did with Isaac Langell, Ryan McDonald, and Amin Halal, the guys with Vader Performance. That's going to be really cool coverage that I want to talk about. So I'm going to try and get stuff out as quickly as I can. I'm certainly not a speed demon when it comes down to getting this stuff done. I'm trying to do it in a way that makes me happy with the content, and a way that makes sense to people consuming it, because there's going to be a lot of it. So if this isn't something that you're into, these massive dumps and these long form videos and whatever, this might not be the place for you. I'm still going to be doing features, so full features on cars, and I've got a lot of cool features that are coming up that I'm excited to share with people. But this is probably going to be a bit overwhelming as far as like how much content's going to be coming out with events that have already passed. Hopefully I'll get better at the process of making the content come out quicker, but I'm not forcing it. I want it to feel natural, I want it to look good, and I want it to be how I want it to be. So yeah, thanks for checking out Eastern Legends. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Anybody that's listened to the whole video to this end, thanks for sticking around. We'll talk more, and if you guys have questions, hit me up in the DMs. We'll go from there. See you guys. Take care.